Hi, it's Alistair at Electric Scotland, doing my introduction to my newsletter for December the 14th, 2018. I will say it's been a good week. I've got a lot of good stuff up, which I've enjoyed putting up anyway. So I hope you'll like some of it at least. Okay, in my Electric Scotland news section, I've done a wee summary of this week as far as Brexit goes, a couple of paragraphs really. I've also done a wee article about unwanted sales calls. This is in relation to me in Canada, showing you how I fix the issues, and maybe give you some ideas yourself if you're receiving too many cold calls. And also a little bit of information about diabetes in Canada, which I found quite disturbing really. So, well, that might be of interest to you all. Okay, on to the actual news for this week. Brexiteers should hold their nerve and set a course for no deal. It says whichever way you slice it, all paths now lead to a no-deal Brexit. I think in some respects, to be honest with you, I think if we were to not to leave on WTO terms, in other words, a no deal, I think we'd really be a laughing stock of the world, from what I can see. I mean, the EU doesn't care about us at all. I mean, we say they're friends, they're not friends at all. Macron in France is doing his best to persuade companies in London to move to Paris. Germany's got its own problems and isn't interested. I mean, there's problems in Italy and France, obviously, and Germany, so the whole EU thing's going down the tank, really. So frankly, I think if we have to restore, because I mean, if you're British and travelling in Europe or over the place, you know, when people find out you're British, they're going to be saying, weakling. You know, we're really getting to be a laughing stock. So the only way to resolve all that is just to leave with a no deal. And let's get on with it, basically. Anyway, up to you to decide as usual. The next story I've got for you is the UK's unnoticed export book underlies why a no-deal Brexit is nothing to fear. A true economic miracle is happening. An extraordinary leap in the UK's global export trade has occurred. So that's that article. The Holy Grail hydropower plant unveiled for the Scottish Lochs. The company behind a major green energy scheme that will use water from Loch Ness to create a giant rechargeable battery is planning to develop two new similar projects at Loch Awe and Loch Tay. Very interesting article these. Seems that it's just pumping water from a loch to a holding tank, as it were, and then when we suddenly need power, we release the water from the holding tank, which turns turbines that generates electricity for us. And when it does that, it just resucks up water from the loch again. So it sounds like a great idea, so maybe you might wonder who you did that. Then, World Restaurants take Scottish wild salmon off the menu as our rivers empty of fish. It said wild salmon caught in Scotland is now off the menu at restaurants after the closure of the country's main commercial fishery. Now, if you read the article, it's basically saying if you're looking for wild salmon, but the only place to go for it now is Canada, as it happens. Next story is statue of Charles Ready Mackintosh. Sculptor Andy Scott was today joined by Nicola Sturgeon to dedicate a bronze likeness of Mackintosh, which stands 2.8 metres tall and weighs 3 tons. Good picture of it too, it's quite interesting. Then the next story is Carruthers unveils plans for launch of Scottish Stock Exchange. Plans to launch a Scottish Stock Exchange next year have been unveiled after its backers struck a partnership deal with the operator of markets across Europe. Then I've got you another Christmas recipe from Jackie Anderson. This time it's for making your own Advocaat drink. Then an interesting one I got from the Spiegel newspaper, the sputtering German Franco motor. So once considered the motor of the European Union, the German-French partnership no longer has the clout it once did. That has recently become apparent in struggling efforts to reform the common currency zone. Scottish budget at a glance. Scottish Finance Secretary Derek Mackay has set out his plans for tax and spending for the year ahead at Holyrood. What are the big ideas and spending commitments? Then PM May wins party confidence vote by 200 to 117. Prime Minister Theresa May won a confidence vote from her Conservative Party on Wednesday, but 117 of her lawmakers said she was no longer the right leader to implement Brexit's exit from the European Union. Then, as a complement to that, I put up parliamentary private secretaries and the irresistible rise in the payroll vote. This is the one I mentioned at the beginning. So these are the two stories you should read if you want to read behind the figures. It says 45% of Conservative MPs must now vote with the government or resign their post. So as you can see, she's got 45% before everyone else gets involved. Document sheds light on medieval voyage for Aberdeen. A rare document about an Aberdeen ship sailing to North America in 16th century has been found. So this certainly takes us back quite a wee bit. So again, a very interesting story. I believe they first went to Newfoundland in Canada. Newfoundland. Then the political touch of death has delivered a caretaker Prime Minister. Last night, a majority of Tory backbench MPs came forth and whispered a truth. They do not believe in the Prime Minister. It took the payroll vote to keep her in post. Scottish and UK governments clash over Brexit court ruling. The Scottish and UK governments have clashed after Supreme Court judges said parts of Holyrood's Brexit legislation would not be allowed to stand. This is that long-awaited judgment, so you might want to have a wee read of that. Then on to Electric Canadian. I'm continuing on the Canadian Horticulturalist, added volume 6 this time around. And also I've got you the Canadian Archive report. I've added the 1886 report. Very interesting, these reports. I've enjoyed kind of wandering through them a bit. Then Voyages from Montreal through the continent of North America. It's to the frozen and Pacific Oceans in 1789 and 1793, with an account of the rise and state of the fur trade. It's by Alexander Mackenzie in 2 volumes. So, interesting. Canadian Living, that's a current magazine, but I found this on the Public Archives, so I grabbed a copy of the March 2016 edition. So I thought you might like to have a wee read of that. If you're in Canada, you can subscribe and get it delivered every month. I've got Canadian Bookman. It's a quarterly publication, of which this is the first issue, which is 1915. And so I've given you a link to learn more about it and to read the first issue. I don't plan on doing more issues, but there are more on the Internet Archive. Then I also found the Canadian Annual Review of Public Affairs. The Canadian Annual Review of Public Affairs for 1902 and 1903, the publisher of the latter work, having acquired all the remaining copies of Morang's Annual Register, had decided to rebind and reissue these volumes as the first of the series. The work as a whole will therefore commence with the new century of Canadian history and development, and the 1901 volume includes a record of such important events as Queen Victoria's death and the King's ascension, together with Canada's participation in the South African War and its reception of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It is felt that this arrangement will be appreciated by subscribers to the series and by that portion of the public which is interested in an adequate record of contemporaneous events or Canadian progress. I'm intending to bring you more of these issues each week until I've completed the ones I've found. So again, really interesting issue, that one. Then Canadian Fisherman. This is a monthly publication where I'm going to bring you several issues over the next few weeks. We're starting off at the beginning. It says, the opening days of what promises to be the greatest year in the history of Canadian fisheries is a fitting time for the launching of a journal devoted to the interests of the fishermen and the fish trade of the Dominion. And I go on to tell you a bit more about what it's hoping to achieve. So that's it for Electric Canadian. So some really good stuff there. Coming on to Electric Scotland, I've also found some really interesting stuff here. First story is Army Life. Basically, I found a handbook from the US Army which explains life in the Army to new recruits. The first one came out in 1944, with a second edition in 1946, and I also found a much later 2008 edition. So I've put the 3 editions that I found up on the site for you to have a wee read through. Here's the introduction from the 1944 edition, the first one. It says, as a newly inducted soldier, you will find it necessary to make a complete readjustment of your previous habits of life. You have become a part of a huge organization in which you will live in intimate daily association with other soldiers, conforming to the exacting requirements of the military team. The necessary disciplinary control and the military surroundings will present an entirely new order of life for you, all essential to our great purpose in this war. To help you make the necessary readjustments, this booklet, Army Life, has been prepared. It is based on experience of millions of men who have entered the Army before you, and it should provide the answers for most of the questions every new soldier asks himself or his associates. Study carefully its contents, for it should assist you greatly in making the necessary readjustments in establishing yourself as an efficient soldier. Good luck to you. May you find friends and experience that will be of great help to you in the years to come. Then I found another interesting little book, The Best Way. It says it's the 4th edition of The Best Way, published in the UK around 1920. It's aimed at new housewives. It contains mostly recipes, together with laundry tips and even a method for preventing kettles rusting using lard. It's printed on inexpensive paper that has turned a lovely brown colour over the last century. Pages 1 to 5 are missing, containing some of the soup recipes, alas. This one is Army List. The Army List is a list, or more accurately, 7 series of lists of serving regular militia or territorial British Army officers kept in one form or another since 1702. In addition to the regular series, there are special lists of the forces in North America, as in 1782, of British American half-pay officers, 1783, and of Foreign Corps, 1794 to 1802. I've provided links to a long list of their publications. I thought I'd include one for you to download from the page as an example. And that issue I put was the Quarterly Army List for January 1946. It was corrected generally to 7th of December 1945 by the Ministry of Defence. That's of Great Britain. So you might just be interested in just flicking through it. I mean, if you have people in the army or something, you're looking for genealogy, then pick the appropriate date from the links I've given you. But if you just want to get an idea of what it all covers, then download that one I've made available and you can see what's covered in it. Then the First World War. Today we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Somme with this brand new edition, which you can read at, and I give you the link to the book. Then another one I found was Greatest Battles. It's before the Persian invasion at Marathon in 490 BC to the Falklands War in 1982 and beyond. And it also includes the Battle of Stirling Bridge, of course, with Bruce. So, again, I just found it interesting. It was always nice to see a couple of Scottish battles mentioned in there. And then I've got the American Civil War story. It's with the Declaration of Independence in 1776. 13 former British colonies became the United States of America, but by the 1830s it was clear the new nation was divided. Adam P. Smith explains how the issue of slavery, above all, created discord between North and South and forced political tensions to rise. So, again, hope you might enjoy reading that one. I've also got another American one up, the Log Cabin Songbook of 1840. It was revised for the campaign of 1888 with numerous new songs to patriotic airs, presented by G.C. Hooper in 1888. Then I have Herbal Remedies by Andrew Chevalier. It says the last decade has seen a rapid increase in the publication of books on herbal medicine. However, it's rare to find one such as this that incorporates details of over-the-counter remedies. It was written for the general public by a practicing herbal practitioner. Andrew Chevalier brings to this book years of experience in clinical practice and book authorship. He is the author of the Encyclopedia of Medicinal Plants, also published by Dorling Kindersley. Andrew is a well-known and respected member of the herbal fraternity in the UK, having been in the past president of the National Institute of Medical Herbalists. And then we have Indoctrination of USA Army Personnel arriving in the UK in 1943. Basically, it's the most interesting collection of material from the USA on matters to do with American personnel in the UK during World War II. It starts off by a kind of booklet, but then added to that are any additional notes or instructions that are meant to add to the book. So reading through them all, there's a wee reference to a Scot in there, which I thought was quite interesting. So I put up a couple of wee things from it and a link so you can download the book. Israel, A History of the Jewish People. It's by Rufus Lersey. It was published in 1949, so reasonably recent. So I thought you might like to read that as part of our Middle Eastern kind of topics. And then I was clearing out some papers, and I happened to come across my father's folder for his Masonic work. And in there I found a little booklet which was Tam O'Shanter and the Merry Masons by William Harvey, and this was the 6th edition, printed in 1960. But you know, we all know Tam O'Shanter from Robert Burns. Merry Masons, well, you know, I just thought it was interesting. So I kind of OCR'd it in. It's obviously in Scots language, and there's a bit of appendix which explains some of the words used. And also in his collection I found Robert Burns as a Freemason. I was thinking I might OCR that in, but then I had a weird look on the web and I found a PDF of that book, so I downloaded it and I've now made that one available to you. It's by William Harvey again. And then, to me, a little coup, it's the Complete Book of Self-Sufficiency. I got this book way back in 1976, so I've always had a hardback copy of it. And it was actually what got me interested in self-sufficiency and crofting and all kinds of things like that. So I lay it to that book that got me interested in looking how you can grow plants and crops and look after animals on a small acreage. So I found this book has been released to the public domain now. So it's by John Seymour, published in 1976. His magnum opus covers every conceivable topic from animal husbandry and butchering, seed sowing and cropping, dairy production and food storage, rubbish and recycling. So really good. I mean, I hope you enjoy that as much as I did. And then the story for this week, I decided I'd bring you a few obituaries from Tate's Edinburgh magazine of 1849. So I've got some for Sir Alexander Johnson, William Dunn, Esquire of Duntaucher, Sir Andrew Agnew, Bart, and also the Reverend Dr. MacDonald of Urquhart, and finally a Major General Forbes. So I quite like these little bios. They're quite interesting, and you can sometimes follow up and find more information about them by kind of doing a Google on them. So anyway, there you go. So that's it for this week. As I say, I'm quite pleased with what I found yet. There's some great stuff to read, and I hope you enjoy reading it as well. Okay, thanks for listening, and as always I'll put a link to the actual newsletter where you can get all the links to these stories, and obviously hope to hear from you, and I don't really hear from you at all really much on this, but anyway, if you'd like to drop me a note on YouTube, fine. Okay, have a good weekend when it comes. Thanks.